Hi guys, in this project we will build a Wikipedia clone with React.js. We will use the Wikipedia API to fetch the data from Wikipedia. We will also use the Microsoft UI library to style this app so that it looks more like Microsoft web apps. So, if you are excited to learn this project and build it with me, please subscribe the channel and like this video. So, without wasting further time, let's jump to code. Here I've created a new React app and this is my app.js file. So, first of all, let's get rid of the boilerplate code like this. Now, let's give it a title that says Wikipedia. Okay, so now in this tutorial, what we'll do is we'll allow the user to search a query. We'll fetch Wikipedia pages that match the query. And then when a user clicks a page, we display the contents of the clicked page. Okay, so in this we'll need to use two APIs, one to search the pages and second to get the contents of the page, and we'll need to display an input box to get the user input. So first of all, let's install the UI library in our project. So this is the website for the Fluent UI React version, and this is by Microsoft. So let's install this in our project like this, and the library has been installed. So let's go back and set it up. Let's copy this, import, and go to our index.js, and here we paste the import, and then we copy this code here and we'll paste it here, and we'll bring our app inside of the Fluent provider, right? So we save our app and we come here, right? So this is the documentation. You can go through this and check how to use this. So for example, let's create a heading for our app. So to do that, we need to import this, and then we'll copy this. So here basically we are using the use styles sort of function or hook that allows us to create some styles, some JS styles, CSS and JS styles, which we can apply to our components. So let's call this heading. Okay, and let's just directly try and apply this. So we'll create a styles object from the use styles like this, and then we'll apply the styles to our h1 like this. This will be heading, and the style has been applied, right? And we can try and increase the font size. Let's say we'll do title 1, so it's a bit larger, right? Now let's move on to the next thing. We want to display an input box, so let's check the documentation for an input component. So here are some input components, right? And there's a lot of documentation here, so you can go through this the way you want, and I'll just grab the first one. So like you haven't used this library ever, and similarly I haven't too. So yeah, we'll just explore and use it right now. So what we want is we want an input component, right? And this would come from Fluent UI like that. Now the ID, what should be the ID? So we need to create an ID for this input using the use ID hook, which also comes from the Fluent UI like this. And then we'll pass in some props. So the props could be basically probably these. So instead of the props, we'll just give them ourselves. So placeholder will be search Wikipedia, right? And here is our input box with our placeholder. It looks nice. Now next thing is to make this input box controlled. So let's create a state variable called query. And we'll use the useState hook. The initial state will be empty, and this is how you import the useState hook. So now that we have created this state variable, let's hook this to our input. We'll give the value to be query. So now on change, we'll get the event, and then we'll set query to event.target.value. So now we can type things and we get the value, and we can check this by sort of just creating a P tag and putting query here. So when we type, as you can see, the query state variable is being set. So now that we can set query, we need a button, and on click we'll call an API. So let's get a button. Here's the button component, right? And we'll get the code. This is the button component, and we import it from Fluent UI like this, and we'll call it search, and then probably just on click we'll call the search wiki function, right? So now we need to define the search wiki function like this. We'll use the arrow syntax like this, and this function will call an API. So let's make it an async function. We'll use the async await syntax to make the API call. Now, before calling the API, first of all, let's define a try catch block for doing exception handling. And on catch, we'll just log the error as it is. Now we also need to do something. So if the query is not present, then we don't want to call the API, so we'll just return the function if the query variable is not set or empty. Now we also need to show some loading indicator. So let's create a state variable for the loading indicator. We'll call it loading and set loading, which initially will be false. Right. And as soon as this function is called, so about here, after the query check has been passed, we'll set loading to true. And then after this function ends, in a finally block, which will always run regardless of the result of this function or API call, we'll set loading to false, like this. Okay. So now after we call the API, we need some state variable to store the data. So the first data we'll get will be the pages, list of pages. So we'll create a pages state variable, which will be an empty array like this, right? So we have a button and we can click that and it would create a call search. And let's write the code for the API now. So for this API, first of all, we'll get the URL. So we'll define the URL like this. This is our API endpoint. Now we need to define some params. So let's create new URL search params. And this will take an object. And the keys would be, first of all, we'll define the action, which will be query. The second will be a list, and the list should be search. The third param is SR search key, and this will be our query, right? And then the format of the response, which should be JSON in a string, and the origin, which will do just location.origin. And we can do window.location.origin, right? So this means that the URL of our current page is the origin for the API call. Now these are all the params we need. We can write our fetch API call. So let's type it out, and we'll use await, right? Now we'll make use of string interpolation to call to substitute the URL and params here. So first of all, we need to get the URL, right? And after the URL, we'll get the query params like this. Okay. So this gets our this calls our API. And then we'll get data by awaiting on res.json, and then we can check for success. So the way we check for success is if response.query.search of 0 has the title key, and if that title key matches our query, then it should be success. Or we can just check if the title is present, which means there is a result with the title present. So there is one page at least that exists. So first of all, let's just console log our response so we can check what it is. And then we can also set our set our pages. And we'll set our pages to res.query.search, which will be an array. Okay. To data.query.search, and this will be data as well, and this will be data as well. Cool. And let's just try it out and see what happens. So we'll open our console. We'll type for, let's say, Nelson Mandela and search. So here we are getting a course error. So to solve this, let's go back and change our origin to star. Right? And let's try again. And here is our response. So now the API should succeed. So let's clear this and try again. And as you can see, the API is working now. So you would need to change your origin to star, and then it should work. So as you can see, so the data object will have query, data.query.search, which will be an array. So in our pages object, we already have all the pages. So let's try and list down the pages just like Google lists down its results. So what we'll do here is we'll do pages and map, and we'll get a page, let's also get the index, and then we'll just for now let's just show the page dot title, and here are all the page titles listed. Yeah, we can just do a link instead, I guess, right? So let's grab a link and we'll paste it here, and we'll copy the page title, which will become the link text. Get rid of this, and let's import link, which should look like this. And now we need to update this href, right? Instead of making this an href, we can we have to do an API call when this is clicked, right? So let's just make it hash, and we'll create an on click, and on click will do show page function, and this show page function will be called as a callback and will take the page as its argument. And let's create the page show page function, again an arrow function, and will also be async and takes a page as it argument. And let's just log the page, right? So we have all the links listed down here. Okay, so what we can do is we can wrap all of these in a div, probably. What happens if we wrap it in a card? So in this card, we can just make a header, right? Let's paste it here. Let's import card header, and body, as well as card preview. We'll see if we want to use that later, and card footer, right? And we'll copy this link. Yeah, for now what we want is in the card header. Let's remove this image, right? And in the header here, so yeah, this will be the link, right? And the description could be, so in our page the details that we get are title, we also get a timestamp and word count. Let's display the timestamp. For now, let's get rid of the card preview, and in the card footer, let's get rid of everything as well. Yeah, so yeah, now this looks much better, right? So now we can also display this date in a nice manner. So we'll do date and pass the timestamp to that. And then we'll need to display to date string. Right, so now this looks much better, and we can try and give this we can try and apply some styles ourselves. So we can give it a margin top of, let's say, 10, or let's say 10 VH, right? And we can give it a width of, let's say, 60%. We can give it basically a margin of 10 VH auto and get rid of this. Cool. And this looks pretty nice. And to each card we can as well give a margin bottom, let's say 10. Yeah, so now this looks like a pretty search page. So you can type in a query and search for something. Let's say we search for Pikachu, and we have results for Pikachu. Now what happens if we click on it? So far nothing. Oh, console.log. Yeah. So if we click on it, it just logs to the console, right? Yeah, we need to do something about that. But before that, let's give our card a key, which will be index, or instead we can give the page ID as the index. So we can do page.page ID. Do we not have? Why is the page not defined? Oh, sorry. Yeah. So now when we clear this, we search for this. Yeah, there are no key errors. Cool. So we can search our Wikipedia app now. Yeah. Next thing to do is show each of these pages when a link is clicked. Right. So to do that, again, we need to call an API. So first of all, let's create a try catch block and just log the error, right? And then we'll also set the loading to true here, and inside of the finally block we'll set loading to false, right? So the API will be, let's define a URL. So this is the API, right? Now in this API, you need to substitute our page, right? So the page should come here, and we'll do page.title, and then we call this API fetch URL, and we'll await on this fetch, and when we get the data like this, and then log it to the console, right? Now we need a state variable to hold this data, so let's just call it page and set page, and this will be an empty object, right? And back down here we'll set page to data, right? So now let's try this out. We search for Pikachu, we get some results. Let's click on one, right? So here we again hit the course. So let's try and construct this API call just like we did previously, or we can just create a query param like this and set it to star. So the origin is set to star. Let's try again. So we can set the format to JSON. Right. So now this returns a response, and as you can see, we have the response, and the key that we are after is the text key. Okay. So let's get that key and display it on our page. Right. So what we'll do is the card, this will be displayed if the page data is not present. So if page.text, sorry, page.parse.text. So if page.parse.text dot length is 0, only then this will be shown. Cool. And if that exists, so we check for that again here, and we check for not equal to. In that case, we'll show something. We can create a div like this, and we need to, as you can see, or for now let's just set the text as it is. Okay, right. So as you can see, we did click on that, and so now it's it comes up like this. So we also need a button so that we can go back. So let's create a button right here inside of this div. So the button should be go back, and on click this would set page to right. So what we needed to do is we needed to set the text, since we are checking on that. So we need to set the text to an empty string. So now it's working. Now when we click on a page, it shows that page. Now instead of just showing the HTML, we want to show this formatted. So to do that, we'll use the dangerously set HTML method, right? So let's grab this. So let's grab this, and we'll create a div here. And on this div, we'll copy this, get rid of this, and set our text. Cool. So yeah, this lists the formatted text as it is. And let's also try to fix this somehow. So on this div, we'll give some styles. We'll set the text align to start. Okay, right. So this looks nice. Yeah. So this is an entire Wikipedia page as it is listed here. This is our page. We can click on go back, and it would go back, right? And we can go to other pages as well. Now, as you can see that there is some lag, and that is because the API is being called. So let's display a spinner, a loading spinner. So here is the spinner, and the way we display it is Cool. So we need to display a spinner whenever loading is true. So we'll do that just below here, inside of this, and we'll check if loading is true, and when it is, we show the spinner, and we'll import the spinner like this. And when loading is false, we'll just display the rest of things. Cool. So the spinner should have a prop, an attribute for loading like this. And let's try it out. Yeah, it works well. So let's search for something. Let's say Tom Cruise. Yeah, so the loading indicator is working well. And on the search button, we can make it disabled while loading is true. Okay. So Tom Cruise, search, and then click. Right. For the search button, we can give it an appearance of primary. So now it looks a bit better. So for this button, let's set the size to small. And on this, let's also add a margin top of 10 VH. Yeah, so this looks better. And this is our Wikipedia app. Let's grab some Wikipedia image. How about this one? And we'll create an image tag. And it's here. But does this component library also have an image component? It does. This is the image component. Let's import the image from Fluent UI. And these are how all our imports from Fluent UI would look like. And we'll just copy the source, paste it here. Yeah, I guess the previous one is fine. Let's make it a bit smaller. So we'll just do 600. Yeah, that's nice. And let's get rid of the title that we gave. Right. And let's put this in a div. Cool. So we can try and make the input box large as well. We can set the size prop to be large, right? And we can set the display to be block as well. What if we, yeah, and maybe this has a margin top. Cool. And can we set width on this? Yeah. And maybe a margin top as well. And on our button, we can set a width as well. Right. So this is our Wikipedia app. You can type a query and search for anything. Let's say we can search for World War. and we have World War listings. If we click on World War II, and we have the page on World War II. Right. So this is our Wikipedia clone. If you like this video and you learned something, please hit like and subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to create more tutorials, and do comment what you would like to learn next, or if you have any doubts. This is